Hello everyone, welcome to another tutorial on C++ object-oriented programming. This tutorial video is all about multiple inheritance. So please check out the earlier videos based on inheritance and debugging inheritance. This is very much all those tutorials will be very much useful to go along this tutorial series. And we have also explained what is public, private and protected. So in this tutorial video we actually will be using classes for multiple inheritance, how it's done, and how we be careful about the access specifier called public, private and protected. So the plan here is to use more on the protected side, so that the variable is only behaves as a public in the inheritance, and on the outside instance it behaves as a private. So you need a public method to access the protected variables from the parent classes which has been inherited by the child class. So let's begin by creating a project. So we create a project called multiple inheritance, and we have a source file. Just clean up the source file. So let's run it whether there is some issues. So there are okay, now the project is set up and ready to go. So let's create some classes. So click it on the project space, click new, click classes. The classes will generate both CPP and the header file itself. So what we can do is the plan is to create um, two class objects. One is int class object and this is string class object, and then we inherit these two int and string classes in a master class, and the master class will have an instance created in the main class, and then we demonstrate how to do multiple inheritance in C++. So first we create inherit int class. So just cleaning up the mess created by the IDE. So we'll change the access specifier from private to protected. So if you are not fully aware of the protected access specifier and the object-oriented programming in C++ language, please check out our previous video. There is some detailed explanation of the protected class and its inheritance thing, where it actually flips. Just as a recap, the protected variables and methods behave as public in the inherit class, meaning the parent class has a protected member variable or a method, and that the parent class is inherited by the child class. Then for the child class, the protected variables and the methods behaves as public, but if you create an instance of the parent class, even the child class, all the protected variables and methods behave as private, meaning it is not accessible. So protected, we create an int, because this is inherit int, and say number. So we'll go to the constructor. So we actually initialize the number to, let's say, 100 for example. So we have a inherit int. So now let's create another class called inherit string str, inherit string. So we create a protected variable called string as name. So the string actually belongs to um, a header called IO stream. So I have to include the header called IO stream, and it is the namespace called standard. So this string variable, or the data type, sorry, not variable, the name is a variable, the string is the data type that is present in the header called IO stream in the namespace called standard. So these two statements are very much important to have a data type called string. This is very specific to string, otherwise you can use int, float, long, double generally, but if you want to do the cout and cin, then especially cout, you need to have the IO stream. So in the constructor of the inherit string, let initialize the variable called inherit. So just as a recap, we created two classes. One is known as the inherit int, which has the protected member called number, and the number has been initialized to 100, and another class called inherit str, which has a variable of data type string with the variable called name, and the name has been initialized to the string called inherit. So what to do is we create another class, another master class, which we have multiple inheritance. So let's say call it master inherit, master inherit class. Let's say finish. So we have a master class. What do we do? Inherit. So for inheritance to work in C++, it begins with the character called colon, then the access specifier, we go for public, and inherit int. So inherit header is actually included, and then we put a comma. So remember, this tutorial video is all about multiple inheritance, meaning more than one inheritance. So we put again the access specifier, then we go for inherit str. So we are inheriting two classes, inherit int and inherit str. So we have two headers, and both are access specifier as public. And remember, in inherit, there is a variable called variable with the data type int, which is protected. So, and in the inherit str, there's a variable which is string, which is protected. So for inside the master class namespace, both the integer variable and the string variable is public. But if you create master class outside, then the master class cannot directly access the variables of the inherited parent classes, which is actually protected because it behaves as public. So please check out our previous video, which has very good details. Then what we should use is to have a public method. Let's create a print message so that it prints the values of the protected variables, just to demonstrate how the inheritance works. So then we have to implement this in the master class cpp file, the implementation. Let's provide the namespace, So what we can do, it doesn't return anything, just prints out. So printing out, we need to use cout. So cout requires two things to do. One is the include IO stream and using namespace. Using namespace standard. So we can use the function called cout for printing out. We can use the keyword called as this. So let's have a string first. So this is int equals this called number. So this can be name and this is the str. I'll just recap how the inheritance is actually working here. So let's have a recap. Inherit int class as protected member called number, which is data type int, and a string class has a protected member called name, which is string, and int, actually this is here, sorry for the wrong description. Inherit int has a protected member called number, which is data type called int, and class inherit string str has a protected variable called name with a data type called string. So this has int, this has string, and we have a master class which is actually inherit both the uh, class objects with a comma operator, and there's a colon operator that tells that a master class is inheriting inherit underscore int, inherit underscore str, and both are inherited with because there is a comma operator, and both are public access specifier. That's the usually that is used. Otherwise you can also go for private and protected, but it doesn't serve real purpose. So typically inheritance access specifier will be public, and you can control the access in the base class or the parent class by putting protected or private as per necessity. So we have a public method called print message to print the values of these two variables in the namespace called master class. So because the print message is in the namespace called master inherit class, the inherited protected variables called number, which is data type int, and name, the data type called string, is accessible in the public method called print message because it is inside the namespace of master inherit class, which is actually inherit both the classes, which is inherit int and inherit string. So let's go to the main file. Let's actually include the master class. Let's now create master class and call the master class and call the print message, which is public, so it works. So what this statement finally does is the print message is a function that actually prints the value of the variable called number and name. But remember, number is the member which is there in inherit int, which is protected, and name is the variable in the class called inherit str, and it is protected, and the master class is inheriting both the classes with access specifier called public with a public method called print message. We are trying to print out the number and name because it is accessible, because remember, protected behaves as public for inheritance and it behaves as private for the instance. That's why we have a public method for printing the value. So this should print the values of both if everything goes fine. So let's see it. So it has printed. So because we are printing here the int number So int number and str name and str inherit. So let's have a recap. So how to do inheritance? First of all, it is a character called colon, and with the access specifier typically public, and you can control all the access inside the class, inside the master, the parent class, by providing protected and public access specifiers. And how to do this is the single inheritance. And how to do multiple inheritance is to have a comma operator, again access specifier, again the class name. So this is the way you can do multiple inheritance. You can have almost any number of multiple inheritance, but please make sure that whatever the class that is inherited by the child class in the form of multiple inheritance, there is no clash in name, in the type of variable name or the method which is the function name. Otherwise it becomes problematic even for the compiler to decide at compile time what should be the method or the variable that needs to be accessed. So usually it might access in based on how the sequence of inheritance is accessed, but it depends upon compiler to compiler how they are actually implemented. So please check out their respective documentation if you have too many multiple inheritance where there is a name clash or a method meaning the function name clashes. So please don't have any methods and variables having the same name when there is multiple inheritance. So we have successfully demonstrated how to do multiple inheritance in C++. So I think I will end the tutorial video here. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching this tutorial this long. Please stay tuned for additional tutorial videos coming up in this series. Please stay tuned. Thanks a lot. Bye.